I'm Julia Hess here on International Women's Day to interview Susan Jones. I'm here on behalf of Suzanne Czar Art and Architecture, and today we are in downtown Seattle at atelierjones. Susan Jones here is the founder and principal architect of atelierjones, and we wanted to kind of chat about her new book, Mass Timber, Design and Research, and learn more about mass timber. But first, can you tell us a little bit about how you know Suzanne?
It's been a great story. Thank you so much, Julia. I'm really flattered and honored to be here. It's a really auspicious day. It's awesome. And we have a room for women here working, which is really cool. But the story goes back like 20 years ago when I was working at a large corporate firm here in town, Ember, and just a lot of women would come to the doors, and one more would come after, and then all of a sudden there was this great woman named Suzanne Czar that would come through, and it was really a time in my life where it was really important, and it still is, to mentor young women architects. Mm-hmm. Many of them became very close friends. Many of them helped mentor me over time, and that whole process of mentoring has been a real cornerstone and bedrock of my practice. And we're not all women in this office, but we have some awesome people, and there's been a lot of women who are working through. And I'd like to say that mentorship, I hope that my firm would agree, that is a really strong bedrock of how I see my practice today in the 21st century. So it was really a goal of mine to incorporate as many women into our practice as possible, and part of that was through those great experiences starting out with people like Suzanne. So thank you, it's been really fun.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And kind of diving into a little bit more about mass timber, and cross-laminated timber is the other term for it. Can you kind of explain the difference between the
really
two, if there is?
Confusing. And I actually ended up changing my terminology too about halfway through after I got more into it. So cross-laminated timber is a new innovative project, material that really has come kind of onto the scene probably in the early 90s in Europe. It started in Austria and Switzerland. And it is a new product. It's made out of a very ancient one that is wood, but it's really new. And so it has one 2x6 and another 2x6 cross-laminated and another 2x6. And of course they can be 2x6s, 2x4s, etc. But it makes a really solid, massive panel. And in fact, there's one here, which is just a tiny, small piece of it this is a Douglas fir panel from D.R. Johnson in Southern Oregon. But then there's this whole term mass timber, and that's what I wrote our book on in general, because it's part of a system. And so the cross-laminated timber, CLT, allows you to span really large distances and have a very strong, almost honeycomb-like structure that can go up and build tall timber buildings, which is what some of the things that we're working on in our code-related changes at the national level right now. But it also often needs beams and columns. And of course you can do a hybrid system with steel or concrete, or you can do glue-laminated beams and columns, etc., which is the more common way to use it. And so those pieces together, including there's an alphabet soup called like nail laminated timber, NLT, and DLT for dowel laminated timber. All of those products together are called mass timber. Okay. And I think that's why I chose the book name to be Mass Timber, because it really is about a whole different way of building. That for me, it was really important that we try to find some alternative ways to replace our very heavy carbon-emitting products like concrete and steel, and wood is a natural alternative.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's a building structural system that's made from wood that is not just your little tiny 2x4s, light wood frame. It's mass timber.
Okay.
And that allows you, because they're so strong and so light, to build much taller, bigger buildings than you might associate with wood frame, wood construction.
And you used mass timber to build your own home.
Yeah,
so
I did.
I was curious to hear what you learned about mass timber while you kind of applied it to your own like home construction.
We learned a lot, Julia. So I mean, that's really why we built it. It was considered an experimental house, and it was an experiment. And architects love to experiment. We love to take on new challenges, love to solve new problems, and really try to almost solve problems that other people may not even see or know they exist.
Yeah.
So that was part of the really exciting thing, was to take this new product and really innovate it with it. it was the first house in Seattle that was ever permitted with mass timber, and it was one of the first really structures in the U.S. Of course, they had been doing it in Europe for 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
But so when I built the house, and that's a picture of it with my son back there, walking through it, it was really an idea about living with nature in a very open and beautiful sense. There's a long tradition in the Northwest about using wood for beach cabins, and we had a family cabin in our family that we grew up with that had all wood interiors. But it was really a way of interpreting the Northwest paradigm of the small wooden cabin that's so ubiquitous here in the Northwest, and using it through very innovative means in ways that used the material in a smarter way, so that it was helping it through sustainable forestry and in ways that really preserve and keep our Northwest wildlife for the future.
The Washington State Senate recently passed the 5450 bill.
Right.
So I was curious what you thought the anticipated kind of code changes would kind of cause or allow for high-rise construction or any other types of construction.
Well, we were really blown away by that process, because one of the exciting things about mass timber is that it's really a very bipartisan issue, and that's saying a lot in these contentious times that we have both at the local, regional, and of course national level. So to find an issue that goes back, even pre-current president days, that really speaks to rural jobs and speaks to urban life in our cities and a better quality of life, and under the broad mantle of climate change is really exciting. And I think people understand that and they get that. So when the bill came up in the House and Senate, in the state, I think it caught everybody off guard how well it flowed through that process. It was really exciting to anticipate that they will do, being really responsible, very thoughtful code officials that they are, is that they'll combine forces with the International Code Council, which is international, but it's really national, which is confusing. And it's a committee that I've been sitting on for, I don't know, like almost 2 years now, a year and a half for sure. And we've been going through, I can't tell you how many meetings, how many hundreds, maybe thousands of hours on this code council to try to bring these tall timber buildings into compliance with new codes. And so that meant writing a lot of new codes.
Or how many stories high do you think
You've done your homework on this, Julia. Awesome, that's great. So, okay, so just to kind of unpack what you said. So, it's one thing if it's in a small house and there's a small family living there, but, and everybody has had the experience of, taking a gigantic log on a campfire and setting it with a match, and this doesn't burn, and it just doesn't go ahead, as opposed to using Kindle. I mean, that's how we're taught to make fires, is use small pieces, right? Yeah. So it's really important to differentiate between using mass timber and light wood frame, just the 2x4s, which do go up much faster. And so that's the reason why the current building codes cap out light wood frame construction at essentially 5-6 stories, because there's a danger about those stories. Yeah. So when you're talking about mass timber, it's a different product. It's a different fire profile, if you will. But they're still concerned that that fire load, could be a danger. And so there's my opinion, which maybe doesn't count that much, but a lot of other folks, will call that what our codes have come up with are very conservative relative to how well this material performed in those fire tests. But nevertheless, it was a good start, and it was, call it a compromise if you will, but it was a really collaborative effort that we all came together. So we created 3 new types of codes that are in addition to today's code, which does allow mass timber. You can build up to 5 or 6 stories of mass timber today under the type 4HT designation. And then this new code designation, there's 3 additional ones, so 4A and 4B and 4C. And all that means is for C, you could go up to 85 feet, and you can expose it. So it's about 10 feet higher than the existing codes. And then you can go up to 12 stories with type 4B, and you can expose parts of it. And there's a kind of a complicated formula about how much and where, et cetera. And then if you want to go up to 18 stories for the occupancies of business, which is like offices or residential, then you can't expose any of it.
Really?
Yeah.
Not even like...
No, not even any of it. You can do it in a cosmetic way, but not the
Okay.
structure. And so it's covered with layers of gypsum wallboard.
Okay.
And that's really in deference to the concerns that the fire community was having, which, like I said, I feel are concerned, but
Yeah.
respected our friends.
Of course, yeah. Well, actually, that leads kind of nicely into maybe demystifying a little bit about mass timber and some of the concerns that have been expressed about it could be causing kind of clear cutting and the kind of forced concerns.
Right.
So I was curious if you could share a little bit or maybe speak to why people may have those concerns, what you think about those concerns.
Yeah. Well, really good question. And just to be clear, CLT does not cause clear cutting, but clear cutting is a really huge hot button, and rightly so. And none of us especially a third generation, fourth generation native Washingtonian, have any interest or desire to be involved in something that's going to be unsustainable for our forest industry.
Definitely.
And so really one of the things that as architects, we start asking questions about, where do our materials come from? And then we ask, well, where does the source material come from? And where does that come from?
Yeah.
And so that curiosity, which seems like it was boundless at some points in this process, it starts leading you to ask those kinds of questions. And so it became really important from the beginning that this product be taken from forests that have been sustainably harvested and managed over time. Because it doesn't make it, it is a renewable product. It is made out of wood. You can plant another tree, and you can't really plant another concrete, something or other, or steel something or other. It's not renewable in that sense. But what is obviously critical things about this product is that it does use fairly small pieces of source wood. And in fact, it kind of took off in this country because it was using small diameter timber that had been killed by the blue beetle fungus. And that was a scourge that was taking over a lot of our western and northwestern forests. And it was a really damaging thing, and it's still going on. And so people were looking for a use to use this damaged dead wood in a way that was sustainable. And so that was where it really got started. It was exciting. But yeah, just to be clear, it really needs to come from sustainably harvested forests.
Okay. Do you think there's still more to be done in terms of ensuring that sustainability?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's such a debate and a critical point in our life as a state. And timber has been such a huge part of our industries, and yet the forests are such a huge and beautiful part of our natural environment. And I believe that mass timber can contribute to that dialogue and contribute to that coming together of those two industries or forces, which have been at times on very different sides of the page with us. But again, it seems to be something that people can rally around and talk openly and find the good in both sides. And with the devil's always in the details, but with careful thought and planning, I think it may open up a new chapter for forestry and for how we preserve our carbon-intensive resources, like our forests, as well as build more sustainably in our cities. So I'm very optimistic and excited about this.
Cost effectiveness of mass timber, because I've heard it's also quite an expensive endeavor. Is there anything that you can kind of say or about that aspect of using mass timber for projects?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, really on our house, it was a little bit more, it's like $50,000 more. I mean, it's not like it was about 8% of the cost.
Okay.
So if you put it in context, yes, it's more, but, and then that was 3 or 4 years ago, we did those bids, so, I think our prognosis is it's maybe 2 to 3% is what I say, but honestly, to really know this, I mean, there's just not enough examples out there, and every scale of building has its kind of sweet spot. So one of the things that we know from our clients is that it's very hard to build a building between 7 stories and 12 stories that's cost effective out of concrete and steel. And that's just been a tradition for a long time, and it's one of the reasons the building codes are, tend to be closer to 65 to 85 feet, and then they jump up above that. It's a very kind of delicate balance in the materiality and the construction type and the cost. And so, unfortunately, there just hasn't been enough buildings with mass timber to really say for sure, oh, this is, X amount percentage more expensive than this material. And it's also really hard and misleading to just say this material versus that material, because there's so many other things that go into mass timber. For instance, when it is exposed, all you have to do is just kind of seal it, and it has maybe whitewash it like we did in our house and the church that we did in Bellevue. And it's just a very natural way of using it, and you don't have to cover it up with anything. But there's a lot of treatment that you have to do with every material, and so we found it's much better to look at it as an entire cost of the building, and then to potentially design it if you want to, to look at it versus a concrete building. But even then, it doesn't take it to some of the benefits, because the schedule for putting up CLT, especially if you're doing multiple repetitive floors, it gets really quick. And so the first floor may be a little bit slower. The team's trying to understand how to have these big, massive panels swinging with the crane and dropping them into place and how that all goes. But then, wow, by the second, third panel, and certainly by the second, third day, these are just going in really fast, and the team is putting the connections together, and the cranes are coming with the new panels. And so the optimistic, forecast is that these will save up to maybe 20-30% of the schedule time for the framing, which that's when you start to get real savings for the contracting team, for the owner team. And so then, if you get through that and your schedule is maybe 20% faster, and then the building opens up and the owner's got tenants, or they're selling, or they're office tenants, or there's residents moving in, that cash flow moves a lot faster as well. So
you answered my follow-up question, which was going to be, how do you think that costs are kind of offset in the long term? But it sounds like
exactly
by time saved.
It's by schedule saved.
Okay.
Exactly. And also, I really want to be clear that some of the cost models that we've been using as an industry are really old, because they were used from, like Brock Commons, for instance, is a great building, 18-story student housing up in Canada. So right there, and so there's a lot of cost coming out of that, but it's a Canadian building, different building construction methodology. The CLT came from Canada, which is great. They're our neighbors. My CLT for my house came from that, and also for the church. But since that project came online, there's now been two other fabricators that have come online. One in Montana called SmartLam, and the other in Southern Oregon called D.R. Johnson. And in fact, this is that piece from D.R. Johnson here. And so there is just a natural competition that will take place as the supply chain gets more filled out and more robust. And even since then, there's been two other firms that have come, made announcements. One is Katerra in Spokane, and the other one is Vaughan Timber in Colville, Washington. And their product is not on the market yet, but it's ready to come out within the next year and a half. So when you start to get 4, 5, including Structural Lamb from Penticton, BC, in this kind of 500-mile radius, it's, the prices are going to come down. So it's the early adopters that will benefit from the know-how and the knowledge to make that happen fast.
Yeah. Well, and there's projects that are using mass timber now, right? The two in Portland, Carbon-12 and Framework.
Hopefully, as fast as possible framework.
I was going to ask what your thoughts were on those.
They're awesome projects.
Yeah, because they're kind of our neighbors. So.
They're groundbreaking projects, and there's a third one too, which is the first federal credit union. I'm not quite sure it's a long name. It's a big office building that is being built by Hacker Architects outside of Portland. It's one of the largest in the country, and it's been kind of under the radar screen. But Carbon-12 is a fantastic 8-story building in kind of central Portland, and it's all residential. I haven't seen the inside of it, but I've watched it going up for a long time, and it's all exposed, and I've heard it's fantastic, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it soon. And then Framework, of course, is just an amazing building. We really won this USDA, United States Department of Agriculture grant to get off the ground and do this incredibly onerous performance testing with seismic and fire tests that had to be done. And that design team that was led by Thomas Robinson of Lever Architecture was really groundbreaking in what they were able to do for that building. And they have received their building permit. They're working out a few budget items right now, but I expect them to start breaking ground any day now. And that'll be really exciting. It'll be the tallest building in the country at 12 stories, right in downtown Portland. It's very exciting.
Yeah, and it sounds like, I mean, you're kind of part of this, this movement too of architects and engineers using mass timber. What advice would you give to other architects or engineers who want to like push boundaries and, you know, possibly change codes and things like that?
That's really nice. Well, I mean, we've been working on this for 7 years.
So it takes time.
It takes time, yeah. And it doesn't mean that we learned everything, you know, over the last 7 years. We learned so much when we built the house.
Mm-hmm.
And then we learned a tremendous amount about tall timber codes from, you know, that National Code Committee. So,
Yeah.
And then I really have to also mention the University of Washington. They've been gigantic partners of ours. We've had 2 really important graduate level studios where we were able to integrate our design firm and the fantastic students at the university, collaborate with a lot of their faculty members, good friends of mine, colleagues of mine. I'm an affiliate faculty member out there. And it was all that constellation of, you know, kind of getting outside of our little design mind. Sometimes we tend to put blinders on and realize that actually if we collaborate with others who are doing also exciting, groundbreaking work, we can even go farther faster. And the kind of firm that I'm interested in for my own firm at atelierjones is one that integrates the research with the design and the design with the projects and the projects with the clients, and to build an entire team that really gets these visionary buildings and is interested in breaking new ground on every project that we do, whatever that may be. And it's a really exciting proposition. And if this is a priority for you, that you want to be a groundbreaking leader in more sustainable construction, is huge. And the kinds of spaces at a high-rise level, even 85 feet for 4C, for instance, you know, are very brand new, exciting, beautiful, natural, immersive spaces that are really exciting. And as well, if, you know, at the 18 level, just to be able to imagine, I'm building an 18-story building that is going to be potentially carbon positive as opposed to emitting all these carbon emissions. These are very exciting propositions, and it's, you know, we have 3 different clients right now coming to talk to us about their different high-rise projects.
Cool.
You know, they're very early, and they're all different for all different reasons, but we're very hopeful that all 3 of them will go ahead soon. We're also talking to a number of smaller multifamily developers around the country. We've got a project in Phoenix and one that's potentially starting in Austin. These are in the early stages, but there's very key prescient individuals and development companies that are really interested in joining forces with us to make a new lower carbon type of construction for the 21st century.
Yeah, that is. Thank you so much for sharing all of this about mass timber, and you can read more about mass timber in Susan's book. For our viewers who are interested in learning where to find your book, where can they find your book?
Well, I have to give my plug for Peter Miller Bookstore down in Seattle, off Post Alley in Pioneer Square, and we had the book launch there last week. And we're also having a book launch in New York City at the Building Energy Exchange in about 3 months. And then, of course, it should be available in Portland bookstores for the Mass Timber Conference coming up at the end of the month. But I have to also give a plug to my hometown, you know, employer here, or hero, I guess, you know, Amazon. You can get it on Amazon as well. Just Google Mass Timber Susan Jones. And it's available. But it's been really a fun process to go through the publishing work on this.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing all of this about mass timber and enlightening us about everything that is mass timber. That is all for our interview today. So we hope to have another chat with you again soon and learn more about projects as they develop.
Likewise. Thank you very much,
Julia.
It was great to talk.
Yeah, great to talk with you too.
Take care.
It's been like a year and a half. Oh, fast. Yeah. Well, has it been?
Are you going? Oh, okay.
Just keep chatting.
Okay. And we're back.
We'll have good outtakes.
Yay, my my favorite part. And I'm here with Suzanne Czar, redo that. All right.
It is
Edit
a
that out.
mouthful.
Okay.
It is a mouthful.
Wait, am I? I'm the principal architect of atelierjones.
Got it.
Seattle, Washington. Okay. All right. Let's try that again. All right. Forgot my name. Julia. Thank you. Okay.
That was perfect.
Yeah,
I
well-
think we can just splice that in. Maybe let's do it again. It's okay.
Let me try one more time. One more take, guys.
Go for it.
Sorry.
Take your time.
Yeah, I was on a roll, and you guys like said you did great, and now I'm like,
You're in your head now.
Don't worry. Yeah.
exactly, Shannon.
You're good. You're good.
Okay. All right. Hi everyone. I'm Julia Hess. Here I'm definitely in my head.
You can do it. You can do it.
All right.
You can do it. Confidence.
Okay. Now am I getting all flushed
Woman's
now?
Day. No, you look good. You're ready to slay this sentence.
Okay. After saying so many.
I think the other one was better, but you were a rock star. That was great.
Yes, I
That
know.
was really good.
Nailed it. Suzanne, I plugged International Women's Day. I plugged atelierjones. I said your title right.
You did perfectly.
I said my name.
You were right. And you said
got your name right.
You said your name right.
I said my name right.
Julia, you were great.
Yay. Okay. Great.
Yeah.
I think we got it.